powered by Red Media in partnership with TSN. It is episode 40, season 5 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, and it's presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. Good start, eh, Ray, as I'm adjusting my glasses. And I just about hooked them right off my face.
I'm like, we're 8 seconds into this thing, and I'm bad. Like, you're going to have to start again.
No,
like, what is going on over there?
Again, it's it's the lure of episode 40 here. Brought to us by Canadian Club Whiskey, who have introduced the first release of the Canadian Club Invitation Series CC 15-year-old sherry cask called the Hallmarks. Classic Canadian Club with the added richness and sweetness of sherry. How was Super Bowl weekend for you, Ray? Did it go okay? Win some money? Yeah.
Oh, it was good. I mean, I was in Boston Saturday. Couldn't get out of there for whatever reason. The flights were no good on Saturday night, so up at 4 a.m., a couple of flights home, got home at 1:30, kickoff at 3:30. I got to be honest, in the first half, I was going between where we had maybe 15 or so people watching, like the main TV area, and I was running into this little side room where kind of like an office-y sort of thing, and where I had the golf
Taylor,
on because quite frankly, I was more interested in Nick Taylor and what he was doing than the Super Bowl. I've got a couple of chances to play with Nick and Dan Murphy, a good buddy who works over at Sportsnet over the last couple of years, and he's an amazing guy. Like, what you see on TV is really what he is. He's like low key. He's straight ahead. I was so excited to watch him win, and it was awesome. And then I ran back shuffled back, and the game was awesome. I do have to say, because like two different things here, but one from a broadcast perspective. How come in the game of the year in North America, 132 million people watched it, nobody knows the bloody overtime rules, and the broadcast team, which has got literally 161 cameras and nothing to do but get a graphic up there with the overtime rules and have the official who's sitting in the booth a foot and a half away explain the thing. Because I'm telling you, Dregs, when Kansas City's going down the field and it's getting near the end of the quarter, I'm starting to wonder, why aren't they making a bigger deal over the fact that they're running out of time? And then almost as a throwaway line, Nance goes, the clock doesn't really matter because there's no clock. It's just like it runs out and you get to keep the ball. I'm like, well, we just played 15 minutes of football and nobody knows what bloody like. So I thought I don't like to criticize the broadcast because I know lots of people criticize everybody else's broadcast, but I was like, man, it's the biggest game of the year. They've only been one other overtime in the Super Bowl, and they just redid the rules. Like, go ahead and explain it. So that's the first thing. The second thing, why the hell does anybody care, or why is anybody bothered that they showed Taylor Swift on the scoreboard? Why the hell do they care? Look, when the New York Knicks were a really good basketball team, I got tired of seeing Spike Lee on the sidelines 15 times a game or 5 times a game. They showed him all the time. He had courtside seats. He's a big name.
Why not?
To my knowledge, he wasn't involved with the team in any way except he was a super fan. And then before that, it was Jack Nicholson and the Lakers. They showed Jack Nicholson on the sideline. He was high-fiving the players. Or when the Cowboys play, they show 4 booth shots of Jerry Jones. What the hell's the difference? Well, I don't. Taylor Swift is. I'm not a huge fan of her music. I'm learning more about it because Cammie really likes her. Yeah. And because it's not my genre of music, but I'm like, damn, is she talented? And she's the biggest star on the planet. And she's dating one of the best players on the Chiefs. Of course they're going to show her. Like, is it a political thing? Or are they pissed off that she sides to the Democrats than the Republicans? Like, who the frick cares?
When you're doing your job in the TV world, I mean, the producers want to show interest and spectacle, right? I mean, we get that level of heat regionally in hockey from time to time when you continually show the general manager in the suite or too many
Sure.
Sheldon Keefe explosions on the bench. The club is sensitive to that kind of stuff. But if you're producing the game, you want to show your TV audience what is part of the spectacle. And I'm sorry, but Taylor Swift was part of the spectacle. It's not that big of a deal.
And a terrible break for those that hate it. The Chiefs are going to be awesome again next year, and you're going to see her again next year.
Well, are you sure about this?
What the hell do I know about how anybody is dating or whatever?
You said it matter-of-factly. You're going to see her again next year. I just thought you had the inside scoop.
Well, things... Oh yeah, I'm big up on those dating, the like who's dating who, and I love when I see a Hollywood couple and they go, oh yeah, they've been married for 14 years. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I just heard they were dating last week. I don't know what the hell's going on. They look like they're happy. Good for them. It's an amazing story. The game finished outstanding. Patrick Mahomes is a machine. Like that was. When they started going down the field, I'm like,
doesn't look good here for the 49ers. What do you make of Travis Kelce bumping Andy Reid? I mean, the group that I was with watching, they're all educated football guys. Whatever, don't love it, but it's not that huge of a deal. My brain always goes back to the sport I'm comfortable with, and that's hockey. And I'm envisioning you bumping Al Armour.
That wouldn't have gone well. That wouldn't have gone good.
Somebody... A teammate probably would have frapped you upside the head and said, "Don't ever do that again."
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't like it. I don't like it because I've been around enough to where a player and a coach have gotten into it, like right verbally, into it in the middle of a game.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Oh yeah. And that's probably not great either, but to physically run into him, He just, I'm sure in the moment, like a half a second later, he was probably like, oh my God, that was really stupid. Yeah. That was really stupid. And the fact of the matter is Andy Reid's 65 or 66 years old. And he kind of looked at him like, what are you doing? And like, beat it. And then we're trying to win the game. So I didn't like it. And I assume they apologized and whatever, but they had a half an hour during the halftime to figure it out when the concert's going on. So it was had they lost, I think it would have been a bigger moment. Like, because I think people would have refocused on it. Now they had lots of other things to talk about.
All right, time for headlines brought to you by Tim Hortons. Add the perfect blend of heat and sweet to your next lunch or dinner with Tim's new sweet chili chicken loaded wrap or bowl. Packed with hearty ingredients like tasty grains, lettuce, fresh tomatoes, and cucumbers, and, of course, your choice of crispy or slow-cooked chicken. Where to start in headlines today? Okay, let's start with the Morgan Rielly.
What happened?
Suspension, yeah. In-person hearing, as we're recording this episode of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, in-person hearing in New York based on the cross-check on Ridley Greig on Saturday. So... I want your overall assessment of the play, Ray. Let's start with what, kind of caused it all. And that was the slap shot, the clapper by Ridley Greig into the empty net. But I'll just inject that no one is surprised that Morgan Rielly is getting suspended. It was a cross-check that rode up the shoulder into the head of Ridley Greig. Can't do that. Historical evidence tells us no, can't do it. Where people are surprised is that, of course, it's an in-person hearing, which allows George Parros and the National Hockey League to suspend Morgan Rielly 6, 7, 8, whatever games he feels is worthy. So your reaction to the play and then subsequently to an in-person hearing being called.
I think what I'll start with is it's amazing to me how we've tried to thread the needle here, and people have tied themselves in knots trying to justify what Greig did, what Rielly did. If it's part of the game, is it not part of the game? Should he have reacted? Should he not reacted? If you take all emotion out of the play and just watch it, Ridley Greig can shoot the puck in the net however he wants. The Leafs can be as pissed off or as not pissed off as they want. Like, that's just the way the game is. He could have slid it into the net. He could have taken a slap shot, because those are the two extremes of the thing.
Right.
And there's the response is they were sour. It just looked outside of the norm. And so when things look outside of the norm, people's pulse races. And so Rielly saw him slap the puck in the net, and he decides that he's going to go over. Quite frankly, I don't know what the hell he's thinking. Like, to go over and to cross-check him. Like, he could have, honestly, as I'm playing this back, and you can say, oh, he should have done this or he could have done that, but there's an emotion involved in it, which means you're probably not really thinking super clearly anyway.
Yeah.
But he could have skated over, slashed him across the shin pads, and shoved him over. And, like, push it, like, made it clear, I don't like that, and run him into the boards.
Right.
And I still wouldn't have liked it, but I wouldn't have cared because, whatever. But he cross-checked him in the head. And Morgan has zero history of being a cheap or dirty player. None. Zero. Yet, in that play, he made a suspendable play. I think the biggest issue is, so now we've got from Saturday, today's Tuesday, and everybody's had lots of time to look at it and review it and compare it to this cross-check and compare it to that slash and to this and that and the other. And the fact of the matter is, Department of Player Safety has put themselves in this position because nobody can figure out any linear path that this suspension might be. I didn't, when I saw the play, not for a second did I not think that Morgan Rielly was going to get suspended. But also, I did not think that he was going to have an in-person hearing.
Yeah.
Given some of the other stick incidents that have happened throughout the season.
Agreed.
Including Jacob Trouba getting a fine for hitting a 2-run double to left center off that guy's head. Was it Trent Frederick's head?
Frederick, yeah.
Yeah, like, so how do you square those two plays up? And so this is where I say Department of Player Safety's put themselves in their own leaky boat here.
Yeah.
Because you can't make sense about what the suspension is going to be. And Dregs, you know this better than me, but I think I do know it, that there's the underlings of George Peros. They all get the videos sent to them. They all review the videos.
Yeah.
They send their suggestions in to George. He collaborates the information and makes the decision. That's how most suspensions work. This is an in-person one. So Rielly's flown down to New York and I don't know, go for lunch and have the hearing, and then that's really the way it goes, is it not?
Yes. So to your point here, though, I'm not surprised that Sheldon Keefe played this card. I just don't buy it. And there's a belief by Sheldon, and I would say by Leafs management to a degree, that the market contributes and contributed to George Peros elevating this hearing to an in-person hearing, which means the volume of media, the noise created around this play swayed the Department of Player Safety. And I don't believe it entirely. I understand why they would play that card. But if that's even remotely true, that's an enormous problem. So that's why I struggle to make sense of it. I don't agree with every decision that the Department of Player Safety makes. I don't understand this one, how it elevated to in-person. But to suggest that the league or decision makers within the league are swayed by social media or the noise coming out of Toronto, I mean, that just feels like low-hanging fruit to me.
It does, but I got to say this. Like, I hadn't really looked at it that way about the market contributing to the size. You know, one of the Leafs' biggest problems is they complain about the market size and yet reap the benefits of the market size.
Yeah.
Like, it's all of it. Man, that's what playing in Toronto is. And that's why it is for somebody and it's not for somebody else. Like, that's just the way it is. But to sit there and complain about the market size, well, then go coach or go play in one of the smaller markets. Maybe you'll be happy there. Do they not feel like, clearly they don't, but that every Saturday night they know that their game's on at 7:00? Every other team's flying all over the place because they got to, tap dance around the Hockey Night in Canada schedule for the biggest market in the league to be on at the best time every Saturday night, or as many Saturday nights as possible. That's a benefit of being in Toronto. And so you can do whatever you want. You can complain about the market being too big, too much media, or you can complain about a market that doesn't have any. Or you can just embrace it and say, you know what, we're in Toronto. It's the way it is. I don't see why this is 5 games or more. I really don't.
Right. Yeah.
But mainly because I cannot draw any research in my brain to say that because of this is probably where this range is going to be. Like, to me, this could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Like it could be anywhere. And I think that's something that the league and the player safety should view and go, this is a way we can be better.
Yeah.
We can be more predictable so people understand, not just the fans and the media, but the players can understand what exactly the next steps are going to kind of look like. Because right now it's wide open.
Okay, let's drill down on Morgan Rielly and the loss here to the Leafs for just a moment. Our good friend Nick Kyprios made a point yesterday in his radio program, which I hadn't considered, but as soon as he said it, I'm like, you know what? I mean, we got to hear from Morgan Rielly. He's the only person who can speak to this. But Kipper talked about how he thinks this was a culmination of frustration. Yes, of course, the incident, just encouraged Rielly to snap, but it wasn't the incident alone that pushed Morgan Rielly over the breaking point, right? It's the frustration of the game. Maybe it's the frustration of the year. I mean, the Toronto Maple Leafs have had a lot of ups and downs. So I think that there's something to that. Again, only Morgan can confirm or deny that that's the reality of the situation. So give that some thought. And then if you're Brad Treliving, who's worked hard since the moment he was hired as GM to upgrade this defense, he just doesn't like the asking price of what's available on the market. You lose Morgan Rielly for 5 games or more. Does this now put more pressure on the general manager to go out, just pay a price, throw a first-round pick at Calgary, get Chris Tanev, let's move on here, because our defense is not good enough, and we lose 5-6 games without Morgan Rielly in play, we're going to have a problem.
Well, I don't think the next 5 games should determine whether you blow out more of your future. That decision should probably already be made and be comfortable with, like come to terms with. How good do you think this team is? Does trading a first-round pick, because you don't have any seconds, to get Chris Tanev, does that, for example, does that put you into a position where you can win the first round, get into the second round? Because once you get into the second round, kind of what Florida did, that becomes possible. I mean, it's murder to get out of the first round. It really is. And to pay another first round price to not get out of the first round again would be a really big mistake. I was in Boston on Saturday night, and this is to the point of, man, I just don't really know. So the Bruins are playing Washington. If they've played a worse game this year, I don't know when it was. They were terrible. Like very, I said it a couple times, this is very un-Bruin-like.
Right, yeah.
So if you're one of the other teams in the East looking around, like, are you starting to wonder, because that's 2 out of 3 games out of the break. They were terrible against Calgary. They were better against Vancouver. Yeah. Not great. Vancouver was bad. And then they had this stinker against Washington. They play Tampa tonight. Are you starting to think, geez, maybe we're not that far away from Boston? Like, maybe we're not. Yeah, you should be. So to answer your question, that would make me wonder if really get an asset here. I can make our team better. I think we can get closer. But that means you also believe in Joe Woll to be your number one goalie and to be able to elevate your goaltending position. That also means that you believe TJ Brody in a reduced role is a better player. That means you believe that somehow you're going to get some depth scoring because for more than a quarter of the season, you haven't had any, and like literally none. And so all of those questions go into Treliving's hands to try and decide what exactly do we have. I think the Leafs are a confounding team in that I can't quite make up my mind, after near 60 games of what exactly they're all about.
Yeah. All right, a couple more Canadian teams here, just because of the storylines around them. Let's go to Edmonton. We often talk about the Oilers here and Tim Hortons headlines. Corey Perry and Evander Kane joined Leon Draisaitl for a couple of games that go around there. What an interesting idea. And I understand it. I appreciate it. It kind of looks like there's something there. Is it sustainable? Do you like it?
I don't know that you could look at that line and say this is going to be the line that goes over the boards every 3 shifts on a consistent game-to-game basis. When Corey Perry left the Blackhawks, he was 38. He didn't turn into a 32-year-old coming to Chicago, right? He's still 38. Yeah. So there's going to be some nights he's going to look like he's got a bowling ball in his skates. And you're going to go, not tonight. Not tonight. So I see what the intrigue is and the possibility is and why he would be super excited about it. If that was going to be the case of the minutes he could handle, that would have happened in Tampa or that would have happened in Chicago. It just didn't. So I think it's a short-term shot in the arm and something you could use here and there. Kane will be motivated to play with Draisaitl big time because when I did those games through Christmas and just after Christmas, when he was on the third line with Derek Ryan, and that was not an enthusiastic.
Didn't like it so much.
Yeah, that was not an enthusiastic Kane because he views himself as a top 6 forward and he wants to play there. And then you go on the ice and you got Leon Draisaitl as your center. You're motivated. Yeah. And so I think that's more of the longer term view that I have on the left side of Draisaitl, not on the right side.
All right. What's your long term view of the Winnipeg Jets? Because, not that long ago, man, we were looking at Winnipeg in the standings, top of the league, and we're like, woof, this team can play any way you want. They've got something going here. Well, they've fallen considerably in the standings. The offense has dried up during, it's fair to call it a skid. I mean, they haven't looked like the team that they were, 10 games ago. What's happened here?
I think the style that Rick Bowness demands and which is best for the Jets is virtually impossible to play for 6 months. And so, like I said, I was in Boston. I talked to a couple of Boston people that have been around that team for 20 years. I see what, the Canucks, the other team at the top of the other conference have played like in and out on this road trip. We've got the Jets. And the same thing was said about that I think applies to the Jets is like February sucks. It's the dog days of the season. If you can collect points in February, even if you're not playing well, just collect a few points here and there, a win here, a loser point there, whatever it is, and get through the dog days. When the sun starts coming up and staying up longer, it is amazing the energy you feel. Because right now, it feels like the season will never end. Yeah. And so that style that the Jets play, I think right now is elusive to them. And so I think if I'm looking at the Jets, I'm like, they just got to claw their way through February a little bit here. Just collect enough points that you don't lose your game. All the offense goes so far away that everybody's lost every bit of confidence that they would have. And it takes them 3 weeks to get it back. Just kind of inch forward and keep your head above water. That's what I look at the Jets like.
All right, well, let's wrap up with a team that is collecting points in February, and that's the New York Rangers. And, Jonathan Quick, we've talked a lot just collectively in media about the surprise year that he's had. Some wondering about Igor Shesterkin. I'm not in that camp. He looked real good Monday night as they win their fifth in a row, the New York Rangers. They're a good team, Ray. We know that. I mean, we've felt that way basically from the onset of the season. But I still have a tough time reading the New York Rangers as a top contender. That might be unfair, but I just and look, Chris Drury will try and get some work done to bring it forward and all of that. But what's your read? I mean, am I underselling them here a little bit?
No, I'm in the same boat, and sometimes I wonder, like, am I missing it with the Rangers? Are they, and I think the reason is I look at their forward group, and I think certainly they need one, maybe two forwards there. Kako had a real tough injury, and now he seems behind a little bit, and it's hard to catch up. So that takes a guy that they were kind of hoping in their top six, and that takes them out of the mix. Their power play, which was like, when your power play is zipping along at 32%, it's probably due to, to take a back step. And right now they're 0 for their last 17. They had a power play in a 1-0 game against Calgary last night. And by the time it was over, they were lucky they were still up 1-0. Like it was a train wreck. And Shesterkin made 2 unbelievable saves in it. And so it feels like they're almost in the point, Dregs. I think the players are waiting for the addition to be made.
Seems that way. Yeah.
Like everybody kind of knows it's happening, yet it's not quite there yet. And it seems like, everybody's kind of waiting around a bit. The best news for them was I thought Shesterkin looked great. And he is a difference maker type of goalie for them, who is, when I look at those numbers next to his name, I can't believe it. I'm like, I'm stunned. His save percentage is .899. You're like,
I know.
I'm really surprised by it. So I'm with you a little bit. But again, I'll go back to the Bruins. If the Bruins are the best team in the East and you're the Rangers, would you not think we're not that far from what they are? Right. Mainly because everything's in the soup together. Yeah. Everything's all jumbled up and mixed up. So it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks. I want to say one thing about that game, though. I was really impressed and happy to watch Oliver Shillington play like he did. No, he's had a really tough road, and he was flying last night. And I'm like, good for him, man. Like he's had to work his way in his own life to get himself back to the point that he can play, and he looked terrific last night. And good for him.
The Flames as a team have played well. Noah Hannafin is playing arguably his best hockey ever. Right. Not saying a lot, but
and now what? Right? And now what? You're like, really? Now what? Right? Yeah. Like the Flames in general. Like it was so obvious they were going to sell everything off. And then you're like, it kind of looks pretty good. I don't know. I still think they sell, but it's not getting any easier. That's for sure.
All right. Those are your headlines. Thank you to Tim Hortons.
Introducing Tim's new Sweet Chili Chicken Loaded Wraps and Bowls. Packed with delicious and hearty ingredients and topped with our new sweet chili sauce. Try Tim's Sweet Chili Chicken Loaded Wraps and Bowls today.
Our interviews on Ray and Dregs brought to us by Canadian Club Whiskey, who have released the first run of the Canadian Club Invitation Series, CC 15-year-old Sherry Cask, signature CC Classic 12-year-old whiskey, finished with a secondary aging in Oloroso Sherry casks. All right, ask Ray and Dregs anything. You can send us your questions on our socials at Ray and Dregs or on the website, rayandregs.com. Let's start with a fun one. It's Will from Minnesota. Ray, when you played, what was your favorite goal horn, and what one scared you the most or you just flat out didn't like? Back in the day, there was a lot of goal horns.
Right. Okay, so it wasn't really a horn, but I loved Brass Bonanza.
I knew that was coming.
Oh, I just loved it. And one year they tried, this is how long ago I played, that they were like, okay, we're going to try a different goal song. And so one night they played Kool and the Gang Celebration when we scored. The fans hated it. Hated it. It lasted one game, and that was it. And it was right back to Brass Bonanza. The one that scared the hell out of me was the horn in Chicago Stadium.
Yeah. It
sounded like a truck was coming through the end wall. And the first game I played there, I think we lost 9-2. By the end of it, it was like, another puck goes in the net, and you're like, oh yeah, here comes the horn again. But to start, oh my God, that thing was brutal. It was so loud.
And look, it doesn't help now with, what is it, the cannon in Columbus.
Oh. Even though you know it's coming, you're sitting there on camera.
It's coming.
You're sitting, how many broadcasters you get?
Yeah.
Because they know it's coming. They can see the guys are coming on the ice, and boom, and you go, ugh.
Yeah,
brutal.
And what's more annoying then is the series of tweets that follow from all the visiting broadcasters who forget that the cannon is there, and everybody tweets, "Oh, I hate the cannon." Well, you know it's there.
It's brutal.
All right, that's outstanding. Thanks, Will. Curtis says, "Love the pod. If a team buys out a player, can they re-sign him at a lower salary?" And he's using Toronto and John Tavares as his example. Well, the hard answer is no, not for one season anyway. But I mean, if a player gets bought out, I mean, that's free game for any team around the National Hockey League. But if he's talking about Tavares, he can't for 1 year.
Yeah. So when you say for 1 year, there's a 1 year gap.
Correct.
That has to happen.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. All right. We've got Chris Pudsey is asking, why is Gary Bettman hell-bent to make hockey work in Arizona?
Because the market is enormous.
Yeah.
And if they could ever get a stability there, that the NHL views this as a market that needs to be there. If the Arizona Coyotes leave and go to Salt Lake or somewhere else, I'm guessing, Dregs, the number one market for expansion becomes Arizona.
I mean, it's possible, right? You have all the Atlanta stuff percolating out there, Houston. I mean,
but if they leave, and
it's an untapped market hockey-wise,
yes,
no question.
They've been running uphill there since almost the day it started.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to the ownership of the team has to be able to work with the city councils to get a piece of land to build a rink in the spot it's supposed to be in.
Yeah.
Not you can build a rink in Arizona on the moon. It's great, beautiful rink. It's in the wrong place. Nobody's going to go. And that's what they ran into in Glendale. And all these years, 20 years have been lost trying to put the thread through the tiniest of holes there. And it just has not worked.
It's sad, really. It is, because of everything you've said. And the market from a broadcast perspective, a hockey growth perspective, hockey-related revenue perspective. I mean, you can appreciate why Gary Bettman has hung on for as long as he has, much to the chagrin of many of the owners who he works for, right? So I know we've said this many, many times before, but it does feel like there's some form of end in sight here. Either the Marullo family is going to get it right, figure it out, build the building, or relocation finally has to be embraced. I mean, that's the general sense. All right. Kind of a financial ridden Ask Ray and Dregs Anything segment. That's kind of weird.
What do we got?
Sam S. ruling on LTIR. So Sam says, let's say the New Jersey Devils put Dougie Hamilton on LTIR. They use his $9 million at the trade deadline. He's healthy before the playoffs. Does the NHL monitor his health status so he can't sit until the start of the playoffs when, again, as Sam knows, most people know, but we'll remind, there's no salary cap in the playoffs. So doesn't matter. In this case, he's saying, would the NHL intervene? And if he's healthy, do something about it. Make a transactional move. Post-trade deadline, you're not moving players. Do you sit him out? Do you activate him? And then he's ineligible for the playoffs? Well, he would be eligible for the playoffs because I said there's no salary cap. But this is what people don't realize, I don't think, Ray. Because we go back to Nikita Kucherov skating for how many weeks with the Tampa Bay Lightning? Like 3 weeks before the playoffs started. The league actually does monitor, which is why I picked the question. The league does monitor, and the league's medical people would talk to the Devils' medical people, and they'd make sure that Dougie Hamilton is progressing, and here's his timeline. And I mean, come on. If he's a week away from the start of the playoffs, and the player says, nah, I don't feel quite there, or the training staff says, no, he needs another 4 or 5 days, do we honestly think that the league is going to step in and say, all right, LTIR has to be applied right now, or his salary has to be reincorporated back into your salary cap for the next 3 days? But there is that conspiracy theory out there when any of this stuff surfaces.
Well, right? there always will be, because there'll always be a gray area around a player's return.
Yeah.
So somebody breaks a bone and they say the timeline to come back is 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
There's a 2-week period there because everybody's bones heal differently.
Yeah.
And could you stretch it to 6.5 weeks? Probably. Like, a broken bone is probably the easiest thing to monitor, because the x-rays would show the bone's healed or not. If it's like Dougie Hamilton's got a torn pec muscle, like that one would be tougher
to
determine when the exact date of return is. And so there'll be some gray area to it, but you can't stash a guy for 3 weeks and then say, oh yeah, here we go. I mean, they'd probably notice by then.
Yes. So there you go. Excellent submissions to Ask Ray and Dregs Anything. All right, you're at home, as I can see.
Yep.
What's the week of travel look like for you? Where are you Thursday when we next meet?
I'll be at home Friday. I'm flying to New Jersey for the Stadium Series. We have about 70,000, I guess, in there for the Saturday night game, which is the Flyers and the Devils, and then the Rangers and the Islanders Sunday afternoon. So that's my week. So a lot of driving, a lot of being at home, and trying to catch up with everything going on at home. So
how many outdoor games have you done now? Broadcast?
I don't know.
Quite a few, though, right?
Yeah, yeah. You know what, Dregs? There are some guys that can tell you, oh, I broadcast 1,211 games. I have no idea. Like, if I sat down, I guess I could probably get within a couple of hundred or 100.
Sure.
I'm not even close, but
I'm
thinking I've probably done 4 or 5 outdoor games.
Yeah. So, you're going to say what you want to say. It doesn't matter to me. It's not about me. I feel like they've refined these games to a point now where, aside from the 70,000 people, but if I'm at home, I don't get any of that. The camera angles are so good. The lighting is so good. Yeah, on occasion you run into some sketchy ice here or there, but you get that in some buildings around the NHL. So the spectacle is still strong for you, right? Because you're there and you're lakeside. Yeah.
The outdoor games are not for a TV spectacle. The outdoor games are for the fun and the enjoyment of the local market, the rarity of it, and quite frankly, the revenue of it.
Oh yeah.
Like that is why the outdoor games endure, because it's a hell of a lot of work for the league to run those trucks around and build a rink in a football stadium. Like, that just doesn't happen. Like, oh, hey, let's start Tuesday and finish, and it's a pain in the ass television wise to get all the the TV trucks there and all the logistical, where do the cameras go and all that stuff. It's a pain in the ass, but there's a clear reason why they do it. And that's because the local markets respond. They love it. It's a fun day and weekend, and they'll continue on.
See, you sold me on it. Now I'm going to watch.
There you go. Thanks, Dregs. Make sure you watch, because I'll be down there freezing my feet off, and nobody cares. I'll have those little hot pockets in my shoes and stuff. Try and stay warm.
All right, buddy. Well, safe travels, and again, we'll
we'll talk.
We'll visit again on Thursday.
Thursday will be right here. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yes, thank you to our sponsors as well. Our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey and Tim Hortons. Until next time, stay safe, everybody.